Hello everybody, welcome back to episode 2 of the Alternative Provision Marketing Manual, which is a free video series created by Provisions Plus and Louise. I am Jade Nevens-Brown and I am the Director of Provisions Plus, so I will be joined today by one of our marketing specialists from Louise. Kurt, do you want to introduce yourself properly and tell us a little bit about your role with Louise, please?
Yep, perfect. Thanks, Jade. Hi everyone, so my name's Kurt, so I'm the partnerships lead here at Louise. So my role is to connect with founders, and often that falls into APs. We have a big passion for APs. Previously working in AP as a partnership lead as well, so very much focused on growing partnerships and gaining referrals for the APs that I support.
Amazing, thank you very much, Kurt. So I just want to mention again that Louise are one of the Provisions Plus recommended suppliers, so anybody that's a part of our network, if you do want some more support around your marketing and branding, then obviously we recommend that you go to Louise for that support. So to recap then, this is obviously episode 2 of our free marketing video series, and we in the first series I was joined by Gemma Harvey, where we looked at the importance of a strong marketing strategy in AP. So we sort of focused on the service niche, core values of the service, and creating a compelling UVP. Today, we're going to focus more on hints and tips around actually developing a strong marketing plan. So we will hopefully give you some guidance on things to just consider when you're going through that process. So I'm going to start by really jumping straight in, Kurt. I'm going to be coming straight over to you. And I would like you to talk to us a little bit about when an organisation has started to review their marketing, where do you start? So obviously identifying where improvements are required, what tips can you give them on where to start with that process?
Yeah, it's such a good question. And I think a lot of APs just jump straight into delivery with big hearts and big missions that sometimes they forget about a plan or a bit of structure and they just go for it. And They might not have experience of running the sales side or the marketing side, or even running a business. So it's such a big thing. And I think you have to look internally. We always advise doing a bit of a survey, so getting a bit of like an anonymous survey just to get the feel for what your AP stands for, what's your vision, what's your mission, what's the statement, and what's the language that embeds into your marketing from that. And I think if you collect different surveys and different answers from your employees across your alternative provision, you start to really build out what that brand strategy and what that brand messaging is, which you can then look to take forward into your future messaging when you're doing outreach to schools or Senkos, or trying to connect and resonate with parents. So I think a lot of it is just initial reflections internally about what your actual employees think about it yourselves.
I love that. We actually touched on that with Gemma last week as well, where we were saying it's really, really important to get the voice of everybody that's involved. So getting the whole team involved is really big step and an important step, I think.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's a people business, isn't it, at the end of the day? So you need to make sure that everyone's on the same hymn sheet with that, especially when it comes to young people. And then, of course, data, right? That's like such an important thing. If growing referrals and getting started as a new AP, you want to get new referrals in, just ultimately because you want to help young people, but you also need to get some young people in to help, and it's got to come from data. So you need to understand what type of engagement you're getting across your socials, how many likes, how many interactions, how many comments, how many followers are on your LinkedIn company page, or how many LinkedIn connections do you have on your personal if you're a founder, and then try to start looking at like your website. Your website is going to be the core place where people are going to go and place referrals. So do you have call to actions? What's the drop-off rates? How long are people averagely spending on your site? What's the typical process from a user journey? Do they click certain areas of the on the page? Where do they go to? And it's all them types of stuff that is really good insight to learn what the people who are actually resonating and using your pages, how they're interacting with it, because then you can step back and digest it and figure out what ways to improve from there, really.
Yeah. So would you recommend developing a comprehensive report with all of that data, and then how often would you be comparing that?
I think best practice is to monitor it probably like monthly, as have monthly check-ins just to report. But obviously, if you have marketing people, that's their job, I suppose, to keep up to date and understand what's working, what's not working, and then try to learn from that, because data never lies. So you need to sort of work and steer it in the right direction. So hopefully you start boosting referrals, and having a really, cohesive process in place will help do that. But yeah, data is very important to understand why it's not working and why it is working. And then I would say for point 3, I've already touched on it briefly, but it's actually the user journeys. And there's 3 key figures and personas that you're going to have, you're going to be working with. So one's obviously like if a parent wants to interact with you, so what's the typical user journey would a parent go through to understand what your provision is like? And probably for a parent, they're going to spend most of their time on social channels, so they might be looking at Facebook or Instagram, and they might want to see exactly what the environment's like. So making sure there's a clear user journey for the parent to feel comfortable where they're sending their young people. Maybe for a Senko, it's having a clear user journey through LinkedIn, then going onto the website. If it's a trust or a commissioner, they want to go straight to the website to understand what the policies that they have in place and see them. So it's really having a strategic plan and making sure there's a clear pathway for everyone in terms of how to interact with your AP, and find exactly the information that they're looking for.
That's a really good point. Because it can be very difficult, can't it, to meet the needs of everybody. Like, you've got a large audience, so it could be really difficult to meet the needs of everybody. But no, they're really good, valid points. Okay, so what then are 3 things that you, from a marketing point of view, that you would avoid?
Yeah, I see quite a lot of them. But
I thought you might have.
Yeah, I see quite a lot of them, but there's also so many good things. But 3 things I typically would try to avoid, especially because it's such a passionate and it's a passionate industry, right? We want to help young people, and I think that really, really needs to come through. It's a little bit of a pet peeve for me when I go onto a website and it goes straight to the packages and the services, and there's no vision, there's no story from the founder of exactly who they are. Or brief description of exactly who they're really trying to help or why they're doing it, or there's no weak sort of call to actions on their website. And those are, like, for me, quite sort of basic things, but I understand that's probably quite it can feel quite overwhelming for some people, but yeah, that's my number 1. So it's not showing who you are and really displaying it across your website. And I think point 2 is stories without evidence, or not even storytelling as well. We really want to show how you're helping how you're helping your young people, really telling that story, because that's what's going to resonate. That's going to resonate with parents, Senkos and the commissioners, about how you actually help and the methods and the ways that you deliver it. I think it's really, really important, especially to differentiate yourselves from other APs.
That comes down to that niche that we covered in so much detail in series 1 as well. So yeah, I fully agree with that one. Yeah, absolutely.
And then hidden policies are such a big factor and such a big thing that's a lot of websites don't have them anywhere,
or have outdated ones, which is just as bad.
Yeah,
if not worse.
Exactly that. Yeah, or outdated ones, and we know how important that is. You wouldn't, I don't know, it's just like anything, you wouldn't book a holiday if there wasn't photos of where you're staying on the website. And why would you do that the same for a young person if they don't have policies on their website? It doesn't put you in the best light.
You're absolutely right.
I think having them is really crucial, especially for the people that really matter and key decision makers in this.
Yeah, no, I agree. Okay, thank you. They're really, really good, valid points. So we have some hints and tips as well in a few different areas that we can go through. So obviously this is all about considering how to develop the plan. So a lot of the points that we're going to touch on, we have already touched on in episode 1, but we're just going to give some tips really on how you can do those things at this part of the journey. So if you've already gone through everything that we advised in this first series, in the first episode, then this will just help you really mold those actions into this part of the plan. So the first thing is understanding your audience. You've already touched on that, Kurt. It's essential, isn't it? You need to understand your audience. We understand also that there are lots of different audiences in AP. You need to be considering meeting the needs of our young people as well, because they are going to check out your socials more than likely. Parents and carers, schools, local authorities. So it's really essential that you're doing everything that you can to meet the needs of everybody that's going to be going on like your socials, on your website. So tips that we've got around that are conducting surveys and interviews. So gathering feedback from people that are using your service, thinking about actually what's going to appeal to them, what's going to talk to new people that are looking at your socials and your website and all the rest of it. So that's our first tip. Second tip is to analyse referral data. So think about the types of referrals that you're receiving and making sure that you're meeting the needs of those when you are then marketing. And the third tip is to attend any sort of local forums, really, that can give you more of an insight into the AP, the local AP offer and what that needs to look like, or if there's local frameworks, how you can market through that. Those local forums will just give you more of an insight into that. We also spoke about, in the first episode, about crafting our compelling message. We did a lot of talking around that. Gemma gave us some great insight into how that can happen and what to start considering. So now that we're at this part of the journey, is thinking about, you've identified your core values, you've done all of that work. We're now thinking about developing a clear and concise mission statement, making sure that that is being used across the board in our marketing, so that there can sort of serve as a foundation for all of the messages that are going out there in your marketing. Using storytelling, which you've already touched on as well. It's so important, isn't it? And I think it just gives a real sense of what an organisation is about. If you can give a story or a case study, I just think it's really nice touch. And we did say last week as well about sort of videos and like reels that could be created to give a real feel for like the day-to-day practice within an organisation, and they, like, people could be so creative with storytelling. We then have a focusing on the benefits of an organisation and not just the features, so explaining how your AP can help students achieve their goals, and just really sort of getting to the heart of the message to get that out there. We then have to consider choosing the right channels. Obviously there's lots of different channels that can be used, marketing channels that could be used. I'm going to come over to you, Kurt, for this one again, for you to explore those different marketing channels with us a little bit, and then we'll obviously have a think about what ones might be the most beneficial.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I think firstly, let's start with LinkedIn. I spend probably about 95% of my day on LinkedIn, because it's such an important place for connections and networks. And I think it's underutilized within APs. I don't think enough APs are on LinkedIn, and I don't think enough employees of APs are on LinkedIn. And especially company pages as well. So actually the company pages of APs need to be on LinkedIn as well. I think it's such a key place, purely for the fact of the key networks and the key personas that you can actually get in touch with, especially within the local area. Depending wherever you are in the AP, you can do really targeted outreach to all the commissioners, all the Senkos, all the schools in the local area, and build out your portfolio of contacts within that industry, in that area, so everyone can see exactly what you're doing, what availability you have, or what the stories you're telling, or some of the work that you're doing, the impact of the young people. They're all really seeing it. So I think LinkedIn's such a crucial one. And also what goes on under the radar is potential parents. If the actual young people could be on LinkedIn, they might be in corporate jobs or in different jobs, and they might have LinkedIn. So it's a great way for them to keep up to date of what their young people, what their kids are doing at your AP. And there's such room for new partnerships, networks, podcast groups. There's lots of things, and
there is lots of potential there. So when you're talking about LinkedIn, talk to me a little bit more about sort of, are you meaning using personal accounts for that? Are you meaning to use organisation pages? Like both? What angle would you be coming from?
It's a really good question. I think ultimately you really need to identify who is going to be driving the engagement within your AP. So a lot of the time that can be the founder, and that's a real key theme, a real key voice for them, that they need to be present. They really need to showcase their story, their vision, their mission for helping young people, because ultimately they're the ones that are doing it, and people need to see that their heart's in the right place with this. For the company page, it needs to be both. There needs to be the hybrid of both. They both need to work harmoniously together. I feel like the personal one needs to be exactly what it is. It needs to be personal. It needs to be their own story. It needs to be their own vision. It's their own sort of journey. But the company page is a bit more about the storytelling, what's actually going on, how are you working, how are you helping your young people. But that needs to be consistent theme from particularly like 1 or 2 or 3 people if you have like a marketing team to showcase that. But they need to work together, and there needs to be a bit of a plan about it. But 100% there needs to be both, because they can work really good together.
And how regularly would you be advising to post on a an organisation page on LinkedIn?
It can completely vary, potentially on what campaigns you want to have. But I would say you minimally want to be posting around 2-3 times a week.
Yeah.
And they can be different posts. They can be ones that happen and how you're working with young people. They can be stats and statistics around the issues of young people within education, and like knowledge sharing and showcasing a bit of thought leadership. There's so many different posts you can do, but there just needs to be a bit of a concise plan about how you go about that.
Yeah, and I suppose recognising as well that the stuff that, like you said, personal journey on your own LinkedIn, so it doesn't have to be that you're literally duplicating what you're putting on one and the other. Really be considering what you're posting on each profile or page, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so so should we explore the channels a little bit more? Because there's lots of different channels for marketing.
Yeah. So the other one obviously is website. The website is going to be your single source of truth. That is going to be the hub. That's where ultimately everyone goes. That's where everyone is going to be placing the referrals, and that's why it's such a key place.
Even that though, like in my experience of working in alternative provision, the amount of organisations that when you click on their link to go to their website, like the website's just not working, or it's very outdated. So there's definitely a lot of work to be done in AP, I suppose, across the board for marketing.
Absolutely.
And I think that like that would be a really good starting point, websites.
Yeah, absolutely. It's crucial. It's ultimately your home, and you want to invite people to your home, and you want it to be presentable. You want it to showcase exactly who you are and what you do and the way you work.
Give a real feel for your organisation. Yeah. Exactly
that. And it needs to have all the information, like we've already touched on, like about policies and how to refer and what's the process, like how do you manage your young people. That's like the core of like who you are. So you want to open your doors up and say, look, this is exactly who you are. And what you don't want is not to do any of that and just be really bland and it has no personality. So website is really crucial.
And making sure that it's user friendly as well, I suppose. So if your referral system is your referral process is on there, what does that look like, and is that easily accessible for the people that are obviously filling out the documentation? So that I think needs to be considered as well.
Yeah, definitely. And the actual referral, I think best practice as well. Sometimes I'll just see like contact lists, or a contact form, and it's just like get in touch. But I really would like to see personally is an actual form that's embedded into the website. That has all, that it's really easy to fill out.
Because it cuts out that process, doesn't it, of like the back and forth of having to get in touch and email, and it's there, available. Yeah,
we know how long the HCP process is and how long it takes these processes anyway, so like every bit of time that you can save will ultimately help. So that's a really good one. Emails are huge. And I know that's it's a bit obvious, but you can be really creative and you can do so many different campaigns. That you need to be very active across your emails, obviously to the existing schools that you're working with, but you also obviously want to be reaching out to the new schools that are not that you're not working with, and showcasing who you are and what you're about, and creating new networks and connections with different people. And emails are really big for that as well, especially within the local authorities and the local councils that you serve as well, and creating them partnerships.
It can be hard to get into schools and to connect with schools through email, but would you sort of persevere with that, just keep trying, and in terms of like when you're sending emails out to, like, say if you've got a contact list and you're sending emails out and you don't get much back, would you just continue with like that sort of termly, monthly, like how often would you be advising to do that?
It has to be consistent, it has to be constant, and it needs to be Yeah, there are definitely some campaigns that we're in the term times, 100%, we can be really clever with. But I think what doesn't get thought about enough is who are you actually reaching out to, and
who is that contact on that contact
who is the
list?
contact?
Yeah.
And if you're reaching out to a Senko, you need to tailor your messaging to that you're speaking to a Senko. Start thinking about what would a Senko really want to hear from an AP.
Yeah.
That would make me want to reply to this email, or what would like a head teacher care about more than potentially a Senko. So a head teacher might care more around about getting expelled or that type of stuff, a bit more than a Senko is more about how you deal and how you manage the young people. So you need to tailor your messaging to both. But yeah, email's a huge one. And then obviously Facebook, Instagram, these are the ones where you really would want to show your young people in the right way, of the right getting the right approval, so you actually have the consent to show them. Obviously you can be quite careful not showing faces and who they are, but this is your real opportunity to showcase the ground floor and where the amazing works happen, and the actual environment and the settings that you work in, because you want to see where you're going to send your kids to, and if you want it to be a nice environment, you want it to be colourful, you have all the right equipment or sensory rooms for all the different things that you need an AP for, and this is your moment and your ability to showcase exactly what you're doing. So visually,
and you want that to appeal to the young people as well, because they will check out socials and stuff.
100%.
So it will be beneficial for them to see exactly where, and also, I said before, it will help to sort of alleviate those anxieties of going to a new setting. If they've got an idea of where they're going, that will help with that from the get-go.
Yeah, 100%, definitely. And I've mentioned at the beginning when I introduced myself as I was the partnerships lead for a story group, and I know firsthand that when kids saw the environment and they saw the place, they were desperate to go, and they start. And you have to be careful with that, obviously. But when they start to see the venues that are really great, they start to get excited because they can start picturing themselves in them environments and getting excited, and that's what you want.
Yeah, of course you do.
And that's what you want. You want your parents to really feel comfortable about where you're sending your young people. And a lot of, I've said it again, but a lot of APs don't showcase the venues. They just say what they do, and you're like, where are they going? What does it look like?
And how lovely for parents and carers in that situation as well to see that sense of excitement from the child or the young person, because often that's lost with their relationship, whatever that journey has been like in education and with school, that is often lost. So if there's that spark of excitement again, that's special, and actually that must be a really nice feeling for parents and carers to witness. So if we can create that moment by just being quite careful about what we're posting to capture the young people and make them excited, then that's a good move, I'd say.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I think that pretty much wraps up the social channels that you need, essentially. I mean, you could start to look at YouTube, but ultimately you're probably not going to get too many views, but again, that's another platform you can showcase your venues or more stories or different things like that visually capture your audience. But I think that's the crux of it.
Okay, that's great, thank you, Kurt. So other than social media, what other channels of marketing do you personally rate best?
I think there's so many good ones out there that you can be doing, especially that position yourself as a thought leader for APs, and been showcasing that you're really credible to the local area, and one of them is doing like webinars and roundtables, and we've done it before with Senkos. You can do Senko roundtables, and once you've got a really good relationship with a key Senko, you can start inviting other Senkos and other school figures and other leaders within the area around what's the best practice with working with Senkos, and particularly with like an AP. So they can be really good for events. Another one is...
Sorry, can I just touch on that? So that's really good as well, because that comes hand in hand with what we've been saying about getting feedback. So you are getting feedback and you're hearing their voice, but in a completely different way. And that shows as well to other organisations and commissioners and service users that you're thinking outside the box and you're being creative with the measures and the practices that you're taking in order to do that. It's not just sort of a survey being sent out or something. So I really like that idea.
Yeah, definitely. You just want the best relationships and the best partnerships as possible. And I think working with Senkos and understanding how they work is such a key way of helping young people as well. So it's really important. Another one is podcasts. And podcasts steer more into the lens of the founder of an AP, I would say. And I think it's more of their duty or the marketing team's duty to lead on that. But again, you can start doing typical discussions around similar stuff that we're chatting about today, or more in the delivery phase of running an AP, or just showcasing some stories or best practices. You could do a local podcast with other AP founders, and they all connect with each other and showcase their thoughts and their learnings and tips and insights. There's so many different things that you can do, but ultimately all this is going to be doing is positioning you again as a thought leader, showcasing your amazing mission for helping young people, and it's a great way to show your passion. So I think podcast is a really big one.
I'm a fan of podcasts. So Provisions Plus have got our own podcast series called The Alternative Voice, and we've basically any of our approved training providers have been invited to come into the studio and talk about their journey in AP. And I think there's something so special about hearing all about the founder's journey and that passion as to why they even started the journey. I really love the idea of the podcasting. It's really good.
Absolutely. And the other one always gets a bit always test people in different ways, but video content video content can be quite daunting, even for some people. What we're doing right now is a bit daunting, getting your camera going and speaking to the camera and doing that. But I think there's so many amazing ways you can do that, and showcasing what your day looks like, so people start really understanding who you are. And again, this is more of like the founder lens, or you can do it internally as well as an employee, but you could do like a day in the life. What's a day in the life at X alternative provision? What does that look like from someone who's on the ground floor helping as a behaviour mentor, helping young people? Or what does it look like from the founder's perspective, showcasing their mission and their vision again? And there can be so many different ways you can do it. And the great way about where we are right now is any type of video can be really good. It doesn't have to be Oscar worthy now. Everyone just accepts video for what it is. You can easily get your phone out and record and be quite clever with it, and it's a great way to just show to the people that you work with who you are and what you stand for. So I think they're really good ones.
That's a great way of capturing student voice as well, because we were saying in the last episode that get the young people involved in that, get them to do some content as well if they're happy to, and they might actually get quite excited by that. But again, then when that's going out on social channels, it's young people talking to young people, so they'll sort of be highlighting the things that are going to appeal hopefully to other young people that potentially could use the service. I really like that one as well.
Great.
Good tips. Good tips,
there
Kurt. Brilliant.
There you go.
So throughout this, we have mentioned quite a few times around getting feedback, building relationships, which is essential. So to promote alternative provision, it is about getting those strong relationships with stakeholders. So we have got some more tips around that. We've got communicating regularly with referring schools and local authorities. And again, like your tip around sort of, having those roundtable discussions with Senkos or targeted members of staff, that's a really, really good way of doing that. I noted that one actually, Kurt, so that's a very good practice. To collaborate with our local authorities. So obviously training providers may or may not be delivering through a framework. It's a good place for them to be if there's a local authority framework in their area, which I'm sure there is. I know some local authorities don't have frameworks, or they all look very different, but it would be really good practice for when you're looking at your marketing strategy, considering your local area, what local authorities are around that area and what their focus is and how that framework runs, to think about how you want your marketing strategy to sort of target those frameworks as well. So just be giving that a little bit of thought, I think. Engaging with parents and carers as well, so being quite creative with that as well, not just sending out a survey, and actually thinking about the barriers that may be in the way by doing that. So think about other ways that we can engage with parents and carers to get, you know, authentic feedback from them. Seeking feedback from our students, big on student voice, it's really, really important. So again, thinking about how we're doing that, getting them involved as well, like we've said, and they can bring so much to the table with like creating content and stuff. So but right at the beginning we said about getting other members of staff involved as well. It's about sort of getting everybody involved in this process so that we really are demonstrating the service, how the service works, the heart of the service, the experience that everybody that's using the service is getting, and the only way you can do that is by getting everybody involved, I think. And also to help with building relationships is to be responsive to any inquiries that you're getting. There's no point having all of these amazing strategies in place and having this, you know, amazing marketing for people to then be getting in touch with you with inquiries, and there's nobody actually manning the inbox, or nobody getting back to people, or not getting back with relevant information. So that's something that needs to be considered as well. We then also need to think about measuring success. So you've got this marketing plan, which is great, and it may be working really, really well. But how do we know it's working well if actually we're not measuring how well it's going? So tips we've got for that is to set clear, measurable goals or targets, using analytical tools, so that actually you can see, you know, are people like how often is your website being used, like you said at the beginning. I mean, the language that you used was far more advanced than mine around how that could be tracked and everything, but it's really important to be thinking about that. And if organizations are sort of managing their own websites, it's really important to start having to think about, okay, so we are managing it, but what tools can we be using to be measuring all of those things and having a look at the stats. And then to regularly be reviewing your marketing plan as well. We've got this marketing plan, you know, you've considered lots of different things as to why and how you're going to put that together, but then it's really important for that to be reviewed, because actually, is it working? Do you need to make a few changes, a few amendments? Is there something that actually you've already developed really well, so you can now put the focus on something else? So I think it's really important for regular reviews for that as well. So I think that sort of brings us to a close with our hints and tips. Is there anything, Kurt, that you feel that we've missed or that you wanted to add?
The only thing sparked a little bit of a light bulb was when you were speaking there is around like showcasing, like, are you improving? And that can be done internally. It's like newsletters, and I'm sure Gemma mentioned it last week about newsletters. And that's a great way of showcasing success and showcasing growth, especially for the people that are involved in your AP from externally, but also you can do it internally and showcase what are the results that we've hit this week compared to last week, and you can start to see them trends, and you can start to showcase that internally about the progress that you're making. So yeah, I think they place a good spot for doing that. I agree, and I think consideration needs to be given around if newsletters are being produced, because a lot of work goes into newsletters. I think it's a bit of consideration needs to be given about where that's going to go. So how are you getting that out there, so that it's not just something that's produced and then sort of left there for people if they want to go and have a look at it. It's about getting it out there far and wide. So, you know, you can have these things on your website, you can have them on your socials as well. It's, you know, get it out there, because you've got all of those amazing stories and experiences. We want people to see them, we want people to read them. So just give some consideration around, once that's produced, where's it going? Absolutely. Yeah. Okay, so I think we've given a bit of food for thought there, some hints and tips along the way. I hope that the watchers have found this useful. And if you do want any more advice or support from either Provisions Plus from an AP point of view, or from Louise from a marketing point of view, then please just reach out to us. The details will be, our contact details will be somewhere around this video. So please just reach out to us and we will be happy to help. Thank you so much, Kurt, for joining us today. You've given some really insightful information, and it
will just give people some information to think about and consider, I think, when they're moving forward with their marketing plans. So thank you so much, and thank you to all of our viewers. So we hope that this has helped. Thank you very much.
Perfect. Thanks everyone. Cheers, Jade.
Bye.